All right, so we're here with Trang today, and I'm going to ask her about how she learned English as a Vietnamese person. So when did you start studying English?
I started late, actually. I was late in the game. My mom put me in like one of those after school classes, English classes, when I was in 7th grade. So like, you know, halfway through middle school.
So how old were you?
I guess I was like 12, 13, something, yeah.
Did you just study in school, or did you have any sort of like extra tutoring outside of that, or how did you go about learning?
If I'm not mistaken, Vietnamese kids at school, Vietnamese children in public school start learning English from 3rd grade. So I was exposed to English, you know, at school, but then I wasn't like really interested or anything. My mom, when I was younger, tried to put me in one of those, you know, like English centers as well, but I ended up not wanting to go. I remember that every time I had to go to class, I would cry and, you know, throw a fit. I wouldn't want to go. And so
that was at a language center?
Yeah, so she failed early on, and then we tried again. She made another attempt when, yeah, I was in 7th grade, 12, 13 years old. When you were 12 or 13 years old, you went back to a language center? No, so it wasn't a language center at that time. Instead, it was just, you know, like a tutoring class, or not a tutoring class, more like a after school kind of like 20, 30 student kind of class, you know, with a teacher, everything like that. It's not like a language school, no. But it was like in addition to your regular coursework, it was an extra class? Yeah, so in addition to my, you know, school, English at school. So you took that extra class, and then how long did you take that for? I was with that teacher all the way until I graduated from high school. She was an amazing teacher. I didn't study elsewhere. I learned most of my English from her, actually. Was it always from like the grade 7 until grade 12? That's about 5 years. Mm-hmm. Was it always kind of semi-private with like 20 to 30 kids in the classroom with you? Mm-hmm. And then she put us in a class of like I guess 6, 7 students, but then I improved pretty quickly, so she put me in an extra class with older students. That was a bigger class, and then I would just be there for, I guess, exposure. So, you know, whatever I picked up from that class, fine, aside from my regular class with her. What level would you say you got to by the end of high school? How good were you at English at that point? I don't know. I only know like the IELTS scale, so I would say around 5.5 or yeah. So you could have like basic conversations and not get lost type thing? So my grammar, one thing was that my grammar and my reading skills, so my passive skills was really good, and I could read pretty complicated texts and stuff, but I couldn't speak at all. I was very, you know, apprehensive. I was very scared. You know, I'm introverted, so I had, you know, fear of public speaking, stuff like that. Yeah, so I didn't speak at all, and also it didn't help that my teacher her style was more of like a, you know, I guess, reading oriented or grammar oriented, grammar focused approach, and it wasn't like, you know, like conversation approach. So you studied until high school, you got to a kind of an intermediate level, you would say, and then what happened after that? Did you continue studying in university? Yeah, so at university my major was international relations, so I had dedicated English classes, and where teachers will focus on like, you know, the core skills in English, you know, speaking, reading, listening, writing, stuff like that. And you get ranked based on your performance. So I was always in like, you know, class A or class B lowest, which is like, you know, the higher ranking classes. So I guess my English was kind of okay, like above average at that point compared to my peers.
Okay, so you started to notice that you were a little bit better than your peers. At what point did you feel like, all right, I've really got a command of the language, I can feel comfortable speaking and communicating in English?
I think it started when I had international friends, or at least friends, Vietnamese friends who would speak English with me. And it's just a matter of, you know, exposure, where you get to practice the language on a daily basis, and you really put yourself out there in terms of trying to speak and trying to, you know, trying to react more quickly in terms of, you know, speaking or conversation wise.
So there wasn't really like a singular moment where you thought, oh, this is like, I really get it? It was just, was it gradual or?
Yeah, I would say it was gradual, but if I had to think of one moment, one such moment, it would be during high school. When I was put in, you know, they have this like national contest for gifted students of different majors, and I was put in one of the teams at my entire province for, you know, competing or what do you say, participating in English. And then I would, you know, I kind of got the clue when, you know, I took part in different like provincial competitions, and I would always get like the highest score like of the entire province or stuff like that.
That's great. So a lot of people ask, have you ever lived abroad or studied English abroad, or did you learn all of your Vietnamese or all of your English in Vietnam?
Yeah, I learned all of my English from, you know, living in Vietnam from Vietnamese teachers.
What would you say the most challenging part of learning English is?
For me, it's retaining knowledge. You know, it's being able to it's one thing where you're exposed to language or, you know, new words or new concepts, but it's another thing for you to actually remember those things. And then the next step would be to actively use those in your daily life. So like you use them as your active skill, not just like your receptive or your passive skills of like, you know, being able to comprehend that word when you see it, or being able to pick up that word when you hear it. It's also being able to produce that word or produce, you know, certain concepts of a language yourself.
How has learning English changed your life, either positively or maybe even negatively, if at all?
Well, I can't think of anything right now, but I would say learning English changed my life for sure. Probably for the better too. The one thing that I noticed, the one, you know, more noticeable thing would be improving my career prospects, which is obvious because, you know, that's what I do now, right? That's my job as an English teacher, and I also, you know, do some, you know, Vietnamese English interpreting. So yeah, and I think that I was lucky enough to, I guess, jump on a bandwagon of, you know, acquiring some sort of skill or knowledge that is considered trendy or fashionable. I would say English is trendy because, you know, it's a more globalized world nowadays, where I see a lot of my peers who need English to get to, you know, land a job, stuff like that.
What is your job right now, in case other people don't know?
I'm teaching English.
Why do you think people should learn English?
Well, if you're someone who's more pragmatic, I would say you should definitely learn English for, you know, your future prospects. It would help one way or another in, you know, getting you higher salaries, letting you, you know, managerial position, job. But then I would say the main reason why we should learn a language at all, you know, not just English alone, is because you get exposed to, you know, a different way of thinking, a completely different psyche that comes with the language. And then also the culture, you know. I think that I get that more. It's more like obvious to me, the fact that, you know, you understand different psyche or different cultures, because I just picked up another language as well, and I can see how, you know, it's Mandarin Chinese, and I can see how, you know, Vietnamese people think differently from, you know, I guess the western part of the world, and then how Vietnamese people think differently from Chinese people.
Has learning English allowed you to have any sort of different or new relationships in your life that you otherwise wouldn't have had?
Yeah, sure. As I said, you know, it exposes you to the culture and the people, so you get access to, you know, you can basically befriend a whole community when you speak the language. So the way, you know, we can communicate, you and I, because I speak the language, right? So yeah, I've made lots of friends who don't speak Vietnamese, and I would appreciate being friends with those people because they're, you know, smart and ingenious people, and I get to be friends with them because I speak English.
Has dating me helped you learn English?
Yeah, definitely. I think it abides by the same concept of, you know, constant, frequent exposure to a language. So that is the best way. That is arguably one of the best ways you can acquire a language most naturally and most effectively. I learned a lot from you. You helped me a lot with my vocabulary. You're very eloquent, so, you know, it's impressive to be able to talk with someone who uses big words. And then you helped me with my pronunciation as well, you know, from time to time. And then I would say the most helpful thing that you've done is to help me with awkward expressions. Those are the most subtle stuff that you don't really realize unless you're talking with someone who's native. I remember an example that is recently we were traveling, so I needed to, you know, take pictures, and I would say stuff like, take me a picture, right? Which I didn't know that was awkward at all until you pointed it out.
Right, yeah, take a picture of me. What would you say, you've touched on this a little bit already, but what would you say would be like the most important thing for someone trying to learn a new language to try to do?
Well, it depends. If they have, this is not something you should take for granted. This is not something that everybody is endowed with, or everybody has the opportunity to access. Is, you know, constant exposure to the language every single day, whether it's through movies, through, you know, music, or through having friends who speak the language fluently. So if you have that, you improve in no time. But then if you don't have that, I would say put yourself in the mindset of, the other way would be to put yourself in the mindset of, I'm forced to speak this language, and this is the only way that I would be able to communicate, and or else no one is going to understand me.
Total immersion.
Yeah, total immersion. So it's more like a state of mind, you know, where you're like, and you need to be excited too, you know, you need to be excited. You should not dread it. You should not be like, oh my God, I have to speak English today, or like, I want to speak Vietnamese. Like, you know, that's the whole point of learning a language, is being able to speak a language, right? So yeah, be excited about it, and then, you know, immerse yourself in, or immerse yourself in, you know, the language as much as you can.
What do you think are some ways to stay excited about it, or to not get discouraged about trying to learn a new language?
I would say, for me, it is being able to use what little that I have and make other people understand me. So I think it's very exhilarating when, you know, it's like solving a problem almost. You know, like, how am I going to communicate with this person with what I have, with the resources that I have, and then it gives you a sense of achievement when they actually understand you. And also, don't be hard on yourself. Definitely, you know, understand that language acquisition is a process. You know, it's not like a turning point. You won't be able to see it. You know, you won't wake up tomorrow and be like, oh my God, I can speak English fluently. I can speak English like a native speaker. So, you know, go easy on yourself.
It's not going to happen overnight.
It's not going to happen overnight, and be proud of whatever you are having right now, you know, with what ability you have right now.
Yeah.
And consider that an improvement.
That's really cool. I like that. So it's kind of treating it like a problem-solving activity, almost like putting together that last piece of a puzzle, or sort of maybe putting together the piece of a puzzle. I guess now that you're fluent, you've sort of put the last piece into that puzzle. Do you have a favorite word or phrase in English, or both?
I don't know about phrases. I'm not good at idiomatic expressions or stuff like that.
But you use them once in a blue moon.
My favorite word would be euphoria.
Euphoria. That's a good word. Why is that your favorite?
It sounds cool. I know the meaning, so I know that that feeling is cool as well. I don't know. It just slips off your tongue naturally, the word, and it sounds somewhat musical or poetic when you say it.
And you get the F sound from a PH, which is the same way that you form an F sound in Vietnamese. I don't know, I just came up with that. I think you may have mentioned this a little bit, but do you have any language learning goals beyond English?
Yeah, so I want to be, I don't know how to pronounce that word, polyglot?
Polyglot, yeah.
Polyglot. So I dabbled in Italian a while ago, but it was, you know, Duolingo learning stuff mostly. So I didn't improve much. I can say some, you know, basic Italian words, and, you know, but that's it. But then I kind of stopped it, and now I've invested myself in learning Chinese seriously. And then I would want to, you know, build on that, and just because once you've learned a language, or once you've somewhat mastered a language, I guess your brain is more wired to, or your brain knows how to go about learning different languages. So I can build on that and start, you know, learning Chinese, and then I can use Chinese to learn, you know, Italian or stuff like that. So yeah, use your second language to use your first language to learn your second language, use your second language to learn your third language, and so on. And I think that also aligns with my goal of like traveling. So I think that my traveling experiences would be way more fulfilling and rewarding if I can actually communicate with the locals.
Do you think that there are more similarities between Vietnamese and Chinese or Vietnamese and English?
Definitely Vietnamese and Chinese. Vietnamese borrow a lot of words from Chinese, or Vietnamese has words that, you know, have Chinese origin, Chinese roots. So it definitely helps. And then I'm also a big fan of, you know, Chinese dramas and stuff. So
TV shows?
TV shows, yeah. So I picked up a little bit of Chinese from that as well. And I guess that is, you know, my way of exposing myself to the language. But then I would say that the similarities also come from the fact that, you know, there are similarities in culture, in the cultures as well, you know. Both Asian countries, Vietnam was influenced a lot from Chinese culture. So yeah.
Well, Chang, you've certainly done an amazing job at learning English, becoming fluent in another language. I know myself and a lot of viewers are just really impressed by your ability to have learned English as well as you have, and you speak without an accent, or you speak without you speak with a good American accent. Did you always have that sort of accent speaking English, or is that something that kind of developed over time?
Yeah, so I would say that when you're just first learning languages or learning English, don't worry too much about, you know, oh, I have an accent that's unnatural, or, you know, I'm not speaking in the accent that I want to. Because it will develop over time, you know. You find what you like and what you don't like, or you find what is most compatible with you, you know.
How do you feel like you landed on an American accent, or?
Well, I hang out with you, you know, Western influence from you.
Yeah.
And then also because I guess it's more common and it's more natural than, you know, like,
other accents.
You know, I can't hop for water, mate, you know, stuff like that. I tried. I would have, you know, if I could, but I can't, so.
I do appreciate all of my British and Australian viewers out there. I'm not sure if that was British or Australian, but it was definitely not American. But anyways, yeah, just really amazing job getting fluent in another language. Thank you very much for taking the time to have this interview with me today. And I wish you the best of luck in your endeavors to learn Chinese and other languages as well.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time, and you know, interviewing me, getting to know me more, and I appreciate your questions. I think those are really helpful, insightful questions for anyone, you know, trying to pick up a language.
Awesome. I hope you guys enjoyed that interview and that you got some value out of it. If you did like the video, click the like button, subscribe to the channel to support the growth, and leave any comments. Yeah, I'm really happy to hear from y'all. And I'll see you in the next vlog. Peace.